Hey guys, want to talk to you a little bit about long answer questions on our exam. These aren't essay questions. I'm not going to expect you to write an essay for them, but they do require a bit of legwork to answer fully. So I want to talk a little bit about how you might recognize whether or not you've answered a question fully, right? And a way to attack the questions to ensure that you are in fact completely answering them. A question like this, right? Explain in detail how water's polarity contributes to the fact that ice is less dense than water. Um, Seems relatively straightforward, but there's a lot in here. So you have to make sure that you really unpack it. A first step that I might take when you get a question like this is to identify some words that are going to be key in this question, right? For me here, water's polarity, right, is something I'm going to want to pay attention to. What is that? How does it contribute to this fact, right? The density of ice, right? That's going to be sort of my next big thing here, right? So, maybe underline them, star them, make sure that you've addressed them somewhere in your answer, right? And then you're going to want to start from the beginning, right? You want to start small, especially if the question says explain in detail, right? It's a long answer question and it says in detail, right? You're going to want to include as much as you know about this subject, right? This is actually a good thing for you, this in detail. It allows you to just sort of spill everything that you know, right? Just put it all on the page and show off. Show me what you know, right? So things that my next step might be to write down some buzzwords, right, that I'm going to want to include in my answer. Oftentimes on science exams, I don't do this, but if you get to the level where you're taking a science AP, the way that they grade their long answers is they just look for specific words. And even if you have the best answer in the world, if you don't use a specific word, you don't get full credit. I don't do that, but it's always good to sort of list concepts that relate to your question, right? So looking at water's polarity, right, things that sort of I associate with polarity and especially water, of course, I'm going to want to talk a little bit about hydrogen bonds. That's going to be a big one, right? Maybe within that, right, this polarity here, this positive and negative characteristic of water, comes a little bit from molecular structure. Maybe I want to talk a little bit about that. And this polarity of water contributes directly to all water properties. One of which is the fact that ice is less dense than water. We should say liquid water here to clarify. My bad. They're both water. Ice is water. So here's some things that I want to make sure that I touch on. Okay, you can write them on the side, right? Just so you have a little quick note. Make sure that I talk about this. And maybe you want to jot down any possible diagrams that would be helpful. So maybe at some point I'll put a diagram of hydrogen bonding, right? How does that work? Because I think that's really crucial to this question. So then you attack it, right? There are plenty of different ways you could go about doing this. The things that you want to make sure that you mention, I'm just going to do quick numbers. You should do this, however you want. On the exam, you can use full sentences if that's the way your brain works. You can use bullet points. You can use diagrams. As long as you complete the question, right, you explain in detail what's going on here. I don't care really how you do it, okay? The first thing that I would want to say is, definitely what is polarity? Polarity is the partial charged nature of water molecules. That lends itself well to a diagram. You could definitely draw a diagram of a water molecule in there, right? Number 2, this partial charge, right, leads to hydrogen bonding, which is, it's a relatively strong intermolecular force of the ones that we've looked at, right? And this just meaning that in between molecules, there's some attraction, right? In between molecules. And this, like, as Hank says in the Crash Course video, right? Put some stars around hydrogen bonding, right? It's what makes water unique, and it's what gives it these really cool properties. So, we've talked about what is polarity, what is this thing that we're trying to show contributes to the density of ice, right? And then you're going to want to talk about hydrogen bonding in the different phases of water, right? Liquid, gas, solid, which phase has the most hydrogen bonds, right? And the answer here is ice. And these hydrogen bonds, in order for the hydrogen bonds to form, the molecules need to be a certain distance away from each other. So in order to form the lattice structure of ice, right, the molecules have to spread out, right? And, you might want to say that this is unique, right? Most substances in their solid form are more dense than liquid form, right? You could say something about why this is. Because molecules are moving more in the liquid form and cannot be as tightly packed. Right? So this is a solid. If you get all of these sort of steps in there, and maybe even a few, diagrams, right, of the, different partial charges in a water molecule and how they interact to form hydrogen bonds, you're going to have a super long answer question, right? But it's easy with, these long answer questions, and also with the pressure of an exam, to sort of read the question and then just start writing, right? It is worth it to make a plan of attack, right? Make sure that you read the question carefully and really grasp what it's asking, and what you need to do to answer it fully. So I would recommend, doing some, what kind of buzzwords, what kind of concepts could I relate to this question? Really, the long answer questions on the exam are a time for you to show off, right? So anything that you really understand and you grasp fully, that you can relate to these concepts, go ahead and do it, right? It shows me you've been paying attention in class. It shows me that you know your stuff, and I can give you credit for it. Okay? So I have other long answer questions. instead of doing them round robin style, we'll throw another one up on the board, and you can do it on your own, and I'll go over it again with you.